Hi, ladies and gentlemen. We are looking at Notes 4.2, which is in the middle of page 4. And the first thing that we have is the slope-intercept form. And I want you guys to remember this is an important equation. It's going to be y equals mx plus b. And I know you guys are pretty good about this. So the m stands for our slope, or our rate of change. Okay, and then our b stands for our initial value, or our y-intercept. Okay, so now that I've written out slope-intercept form, we have a new form, and that's standard form. And the standard form is going to be ax plus by plus c is equal to 0, where a, b, and c have to be integers. So therefore, we can't have any fractions or decimals, okay? And a has to be positive, okay? So if you look right here, for each question below, identify a, b, and c, then express each equation in slope-intercept form, and identify its slope and y-intercept. So if we look at this right here, I can see that this is in standard form because it's all equal to 0. And I have my a value right here is positive, and all my coefficients are all integers. So all I have to do is just identify what the a is, the b is, the c is, and go from there. Okay, so right here, when I have my a is going to be 1 because my coefficient in front of my x is 1, and a is the coefficient in front of x. My b is also 1, and my c is -3. Okay, that's all I have to do for this question. Now that I've done that, I can go ahead and get it in y equals mx plus b form, or slope-intercept form. When it says to get it in slope-intercept form, it means to isolate y. So that means we have to get y alone. So how do I do that? Well, I'm going to subtract x from both sides. So right here I get y minus 3 equals -x. Then I'm going to add 3 to both sides. So I get y equals -x plus 3. Now, by looking at this right here, if the general equation is y equals mx plus b, the m is the coefficient in front of this x right here, which means that it has an invisible 1. So therefore, my m is -1. So my slope is -1. And then this value right here is my b, so b equals 3. So that's how I can figure out my equation right here. Okay? All right, so let's take a look at number 2. In number 2, same thing. I have to do ax plus by plus c equals 0, okay? Here, by looking at this, I can see that the a is 1, the b is 2, and the c is -4. So I'm done with the first part. Then I have to isolate the y, so that's what I'm going to do right here. So in order to do that, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract the x again from both sides. So I get 2y minus 4 equals -x. Then I'm going to add the 4 to get the to get the 2y alone. So I get 2y equals -x plus 4. Now pay very close attention to the next piece. I'm going to divide everything by 2 to get that y alone. So when I do that, I end up getting y equals. Now this right here has an invisible 1 in front of it, and I can't divide 1 by 2 evenly. I get a fraction, so I'm going to leave it as -1/2 x. And then this right here has a 2. So then I get y equals -1/2 x plus 2. Okay? Therefore, I can conclude that my m is -1/2 because that's the coefficient in front of the x, and that my b is 2. So I'm done with question number 2. Okay? All right, last one, number 3. So number 3 says 4x minus 3y minus 15 equals 0. So I can say that a is 4, b is -3, and c is -15. So how am I going to isolate the y? Well, remember when we did our equations unit, we said if the 3y or the y or whatever the coefficient is in front of the y is negative, we can add it to both sides to make it positive. That'll make our lives so much easier. So this ends up being 4x minus 15 equals 3y. Okay, so then we're going to divide everything by 3 to get that y alone, and when I do that, I end up getting, now here I get a fraction and I can't divide it evenly, so I'm going to leave it as 4/3 x, and then 15 divided by 3 is 5, so I get y equals 4/3 x minus 5. Therefore, my m is going to be 4/3, and my b is going to be -5. Right, so let's take a look at question number 4. It says the celebrations banquet hall uses the equation 25n minus c plus 1250 equals 0. So if you notice right here, we have our standard form. So this equation right here is in standard form. To determine the cost for a rental hall where C represents the cost, so that's important, we'll underline that, which depends on N, the number of people attending. So this word right here is so key, depends, right? So if it depends on it, that means that the C is the dependent variable, which means that C is like Y. And right here, this means if it depends on N, then N is the independent variable, which means N is like X. So right here, this is kind of like saying 25x minus y plus 1250 equals 0, okay? So when it says express the equation in slope-intercept form, that means that we have to isolate the y. But I don't have a y, I have a c. So I'm going to get the c alone. Well, I don't like the c being negative, so I'm going to add c to both sides. So I end up getting 25n plus 1250 is equal to c. So I've gotten the c alone. c equals 25n plus 1250. Okay? So then it says identify the fixed and variable costs. Well, remember your fixed cost is your y-intercept, your starting amount. Your variable cost is your slope. So we can say our fixed cost is $1,250. So that means that I have to pay $1,250 just for my rental fee, just to have my the use of their hall. Okay, and then what's the variable cost? Well, what's changing? It's changing by $25 for every n, so $25 per person. So the variable cost is going to be $25 per person. Okay, so then we need to illustrate this relation graphically. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to label my x-axis number of people, and I'm going to label my y-axis the cost rate here. So if I have 0 people, I'm just going to see what happens as the number of people increases. So I'll go up by ones. It's up to you. Sometimes it's easier to go up by 10s, 20s, whatever you want. Then I'm going to put a break in my graph because I know that I'm going to start off by paying $12.50. Okay, and then it's $25 per person. So this would be $12.75. So this would be $1,300. I'm going to go up by 25, or yeah, by 25s. So this would be $13.25. So this would be $13.50. Skip one, this would be $1,400, so on and so forth. Okay, so then when I go ahead and do my graph, I see that 0 people will cost $12.50. One person is an extra $25, so they'll cost $1,275, and I would just keep going with my graph right here. Okay, so here's what my graph will look like. And I'm going to put an arrow because I could increase the number of people, but I'm not going to put an arrow on this side because I won't have negative people. Okay, and then it says, what is the rental cost if 100 people attend a soccer banquet? So I'm going to use this equation that we wrote right here. So C equals 25n plus 1250. This 100 people stands for n, so I'm going to replace the n with 100. So I'm going to say 25 times 100 plus 1250. So I get C equals 2500 plus 1250, so I get $3,750. Okay, and that's our lesson. I'll see you next class. Bye.